Hi, so today we are going to be talking about the essay prompts and structure for the short stories in the Stories of Ourselves collection that we have been reviewing together. And so I want to spend a couple of minutes and talk about what those prompts actually look like, how you might address them, ways in which they might be slightly different than the types of essays we have been working on, just making sure that you guys know how to write about the short stories rather than like the text as a whole or like a whole entire novel, just because some of those prompts, especially the A prompts, look a little bit different. So just as a quick review, remember that Stories of Ourselves are part of paper two, which is our prose and unseen paper. It is, of course, paper two, the second one we'll take. And one of the reasons that I want to make sure that we talk about these types of essay prompts is because, again, paper two is an AS level prompt. And so we will, or excuse me, an AS level paper. And so we will, all of you will be taking that paper during this exam season. And so I want to make sure that we are good to go and that we know exactly what we need to do and that none of this looks like a surprise. So without further ado, let's talk about the prompts.
Okay, so just like all of our other ACE Lit papers, for the Stories of Ourselves, you will have both an A prompt and a B prompt. And remember, you are going to choose one of those two prompts. So what you see on your screen right now is a review of the A prompt. And so this is asking you, you can see in the bold at the top, it says discuss ways in which two stories present blank. And that blank is going to, in the actual prompt on the actual paper, give you some sort of large idea, some sort of thematic focus, some sort of literary construct that is going to be your focus for the essay. And you should have the sample prompts in front of you, and you can go ahead and take a look at those and kind of see what some of those different focus areas might be. So your task is to make sure that you, first of all, identify the focus that you're being given by Cambridge, and then identify two stories that you think you can write about that fit into that category or construct. And remember, because it is our A prompt, that is where the evidence is coming out of your own brain, right? And so it's going to be specific kind of paraphrased narrative examples as well as direct quotes, because as we continue to talk about, the expectation from Cambridge is that your A prompt will have direct quotes. B prompt is going to look a lot like all of the other B prompts that you are used to. It will give you a prompt and a passage, and those passages will come from any of the 15 stories that are part of our set text. And so the prompt will give you a focus, and then you will have that particular passage underneath it. And again, it will come from one of our 15 stories. And so, just like we are used to doing with all of our other prompts, you will go ahead and identify the focus and make sure that you say something specific about it and think about analyzing the passage in terms of that specific focus. For organization, like how you actually put together your paragraphs, A prompt, this is very similar to what we have talked about with other A prompts for other texts. Are you going to organize by story? Are you going to organize by element? Are you going to organize by thematic idea? There are many, many, many different ways to organize the A prompt. One way to organize the A prompt, and you may want to add this to your notes, is to organize, as it says here, by story, but I want to make sure that we talk about that. If you are organizing by story, and that means you might have your first body paragraph about your first story, second body paragraph about your second story, you need to have a third and final body paragraph that does some sort of comparing and contrasting about those two stories in terms of the focus given in the prompt. That third body paragraph that talks about points of similarity and points of dissimilarity between the two stories is very important. Organization for the B prompt, this is what we are so used to. Because it is a passage, it has that top to bottom analysis. So just like you're used to doing, you're going to divide that passage into at least 3 sections. You're going to name each section, and those become your supporting details. For your thesis, for the A prompt, this first bullet is so important. You need to name the 2 stories that you are choosing to write about, because again, there are 15 stories available to you that you need to be very clear with your reader. These are the 2 stories that I am choosing. You need to then think back about the focus that they give you and the prompt and specify something about it. So you can't just say, oh, they present setting, oh, they present a character, oh, they present this big thematic idea, they present love. How are they doing that? What are they saying about it? And then you also need to specify your paragraph topics if you are, however you are choosing to organize. For the B prompt, again, this is a very familiar thesis for us. Again, something specific about the focus, and then specifying your paragraph topics, which are your passage divisions. How have you divided and named each passage? Paragraph structure is the same for both essays. It does not matter whether we're thinking A prompt or B prompt for your paragraph. Your first sentence is always your assertion. That's where you again kind of restate the main idea for that particular for your essay, and then you introduce or remind your reader, this is my first supporting detail. And so that's going to be the case for, again, both the A prompt and the B prompt. Evidence is next. Remember, we talked about with the A prompt, that comes from your own brain, your own knowledge, and the quotes that you have in the from the text in your brain. The B prompt, the evidence, is going to be quotes from the passage provided. And then commentary is going to be the same again for both. Remember, that commentary should accomplish a couple things. The first thing it needs to do is identify the device in the quote and explain the effect of that device. So if you're talking about an image, then you've quoted that image, explain the effect of that image. Tell us that it is imagery and explain the effect of that image. Tell us that this example is an example of irony and explain what that irony is doing. What is the effect of that irony? And then you are connecting that effect of that imagery, that irony, that characterization. You're connecting it back to the specified focus in your thesis. This is another slide that I would like for you to add to your notes. So we've been talking about the A prompt and the B prompt. The B prompt is the one that has the passages associated with it. A prompt, you are free to choose. It says choose two stories or talk about the way that two stories present a particular idea. For that, you are welcome to choose any two stories you want out of those 15. Free range, open season, doesn't matter. For the B prompt, when they give you a story, or when they give you a passage, it is going to come again from one of our 15 stories. What I have here is a list of the stories that have already been tested in 2024. And the reason that I'm giving this to you is because Cambridge does not usually like to repeat stories or passages from stories. So if they have already tested on it, there is a good chance that it will not show up again on your exam. I'm not saying there's a 0% chance. Please hear me. But I think it is less likely that these stories will show up on your exam, because these 7 stories have already shown up in a March 2024 exam. Last June, these were the 3 that were on the tests. And then in November of this year, again, these are the 3 that were on the November series. And they don't like to recycle, especially when there are other stories that they haven't used yet. So these are the 7 stories that I think are less likely to show up on your exam. So I would take a moment, maybe pause the video, write these down, because if you have to focus your review, I would say that these are the stories you can do less review for, because I think it is less likely that they will show up on your exam.
And that's our quick review of the types of prompts that you are going to see on your paper 2, Prose and Unseen. And again, just a review of how to approach the prompts, how you would organize, how you would write your thesis for these. And then again, where we're thinking about evidence, where we're thinking about how to put together a paragraph structure. So just kind of a general overview. Again, not a lot of it is new information, but again, it's good for us to kind of think about how we apply these types of writing skills to the short stories, rather than writing about like a whole play, a whole novel, something like that. Again, if you are watching this video and we are after the 2025 school year, the list that you saw on that final slide will need to be updated. You'll need to, if you were in the class, then I will provide you with that updated information, because there will be stories that we are going to add to that list. But as of right now, in April 2025, those are the 7 stories that Cambridge has already used. And again, just as a quick reminder, that doesn't mean that you're not going to see those on the exam. But because Cambridge usually doesn't like to repeat, I think it's less likely, as I kept saying, I think it's less likely that you'll see those. So again, do review those 7 stories, and remember that you can use those 7 stories on the A prompt if you would like to. But I think it's less likely that your passage, your B prompt, will come from one of those stories. So I hope this is helpful. Thank you so much, and have a great evening. Who's here? It's like he knows. He knows. Here he is. This is Fitz. There he goes. There you go.